Hello, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests. Welcome to our alumni lunch lecture. Can we please have a round of applause for the students from the Bell Chamber who have just played some lovely music. Thank you. My name is Tim Burton. I'm the Senior Manager for Engagement for the Faculty of Business Economics and Law. And I'd just personally like to thank Mr. Sinnathamby for making his time to come and speak to us today. I would just to quickly draw your attention to the Business Precinct brochure that's on your chair. I'm pleased to announce that the project has now entered the next phase, and we've just produced an information video, which will be available shortly. The video highlights some business hubs that will form part of the building, like our Indigenous Centre for Commerce and Law, Economics and Commerce and Research Institute, and our Careers Centre. The video is narrated by alumni and students and academics from the schools of Business, Economics and Law. And we are forming a board shortly, and if you are interested in making this project a reality, please speak to myself or Professor Griffiths. If you can please ensure your mobile phones are switched off, and I'd like to introduce you to Professor Andrew Griffiths, the Dean and Head of UQ Business School. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Chancellor, John Story, and Pro-Vice Chancellor Advancement, Ms. Claire Puller. Now, this is a rather exciting event for us. I'm not to take up too much time because I don't want to draw attention away from our fantastic guest speaker today. But I did want to advise everybody that we are actually filming today's presentation. So I just wanted to alert you to that. And I also wanted to alert you to the fact that books are available, or a copy of Maha's book is available as you leave, just in the alcove near Queen Street, on the Queen Street side. So in terms of how do I introduce somebody who has achieved so much, who has outlined a real spirit of entrepreneurialism and innovation and a passion for their belief in business and doing business in a professional manner? Well, our guest today, Mr. Maha Sinnathamby, is the chairman of the Springfield Land Corporation. He's the visionary behind the Greater Springfield project. Now, that project has won numerous international awards. Maha has a vision and a passion to create communities where people can come together, they have the appropriate infrastructure, they are commercially viable, and they are sustainable. They are truly world-class communities. Not only are they world-class communities, but they are at the cutting edge of both commercial and community development and entrepreneurial enterprise. As you would expect, Maha has outstanding entrepreneurial skills which have been internationally recognised. Maha's contribution to community extends to a variety of key leadership and committee roles outside of the development of industry. Would you please welcome our guest today, Mr. Maha Sinnathamby, to the lectern to give his presentation on Stop, Not Till the Goal is Reached. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Chancellor, John Story, Claire Puller, Pro-Chancellor of Advancement, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here with you today, but I'll be more delighted if at the end of my talk and when you go home, you have taken something out of it. Most of you are here and some of you know me, so we are among friends. Ask me the hard questions, interrogate me, and give me a hard time. In telling my story, I'm going to tell you about the highs and lows in my life. And I want you to think about the pain, the agony, and the sleepless nights that I have had to have, only to know that success is there if you keep on going against all odds. Friends, I was born in war-torn Malaysia to parents who lived in abject poverty. I studied under a kerosene lamp, and there was very little water and no electricity. Dad was an informant to the British, informing about British troop movements. The Japanese found out about it. A jeep pulled out outside our house. The Alsatian dog went to attack them. They shot him dead. They yelled it for my father, and he came out, and they whacked him up with a rifle butt, put him in the jeep. 142 went to prison, 2 came out alive, and Dad was one of them. My mom was mainly responsible for bringing Dad out. She is fearless. One word to describe her: she fears nothing. At the age of 27, Dad in prison, she had 7 children. And with the country at war, no food, no dad, it's a case of survival. I was 4 years old, and friends, the best thing that happened in my life was that going through that phase of life, where you learn the art of survival, survive from nothing. Dad was released out of jail, and instead of coming home, which is about 18 kilometers away, he wandered around, registered all the children in schools. Then he comes home. Took another 6 hours before he landed home. That showed the importance of education he had. I went to school, to a Catholic school, the local school. I did not enjoy the school. I failed at school. Those days, when you don't pass that year, you are asked to stay back until you are better off, and then you go to the next year. So I failed in school. I've had many failures. After finishing high school at the age of 17 and a half, Dad sent me out to Australia to study civil engineering. I have 2 brothers other than me, and we were told, the elder one, you become a vet. He became a vet. The second one, you are a doctor. He became a doctor. The third one, me, you become a civil engineer. That's it. It was ingrained in you. So I came here, I caught a boat in Fremantle, in Singapore, landed in Fremantle, came over to Sydney, a totally new world, a world moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. From a small village, I had to learn to adjust. But those of you who know me well, I can adjust to any situation just like that. So I got used to Australia. I did my matriculation, somehow managed to pass it, and went to University of New South Wales to do civil engineering. I failed again. A 4-year course took me 6 years. So it's failures after failures after failures. Managed to pass. But one thing that you learn out of all this is you just hang in there. You just hang in there. And this coming out of Malaysia to Australia was a major game change for me, friends. I had to survive on my own. I was about 17 and a half years old. nobody to tell you what to do. You could do anything. But you are determined to succeed. University was very hard, and as I said, I failed. And when I failed the second time, I wrote to my dad. I cried as I wrote to him. I said to him, Dad, I let you down. Because they have done everything, saved a penny, every penny to put me through uni. And I thought he would get upset and he would write me a nasty letter. But this is what he wrote. Son, don't give up. The darkest night brings the brightest dawn. I read it and I cried. And that's what kept me going. So, it's a failures that's your best teachers, friends. When you fail, when you strive, just keep going. Don't ever, ever give up. Failures are your best teachers, but just pick your bags up and keep going. This is a very strong message I'd like you to take home. When I was at uni, Dad you send me $70 a month. It'll come first, second, or third of the month. He was a very disciplined man, this man. And that was not enough money, so what do? I learned taxis, drive a taxi around Sydney. 1960, Sydney was totally different. It wasn't a multicultural society as it is. I was very used to it. I just drove around. I had a fantastic time. My landlord was an Irish gentleman, Barney Bradley Joseph, a fantastic handyman. And we used to buy second-hand cars at the auctions. Barney will fix it up, we sell it. Paid my rent. If that was not enough, we used to buy second-hand TVs and radios and transistor radios, just buy and sell. Barney was a handyman, I was a salesman. We had a great time. Every year, when it came to pay the university fees, I did not have money. I used to write to the registrar and say, Registrar, I would like an extension of time to pay my fees. He would write back, wonderful man he was, write back, I'll give you 6 months. 6 months come, I pay my fees. Somehow I pay my fees, but I've always paid it. When I finished, and just 2 days before graduation, I rang his PA up, and I said to her, I would like to see the registrar in person. And this is what she said. Do you like a further extension of time to pay your fees? I said, no. I just want to come and thank him. So she said, you only got 10 minutes. The registrar, friends, was very impressed with me. He spent 1 hour and 10 minutes. He told me his life story. He said he was writing a book. He was really appreciative that somebody who could have just taken a plane and disappeared and never see him anymore came to thank him. A lesson to learn here is never forget the hand that fed you. It will always take you further. The learning at university taught me a lot. It was all about persistence, persistence, and persistence. In government circles, you hear the word 3 Ps, but my 3 Ps is just persistence, persistence, and persistence. Take it home. Here, I would like to quote Calvin Coolidge, the 30th President of the United States. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men or women with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and will always solve the problems of the human race. Friends, President Coolidge was also an educated person. but it was his persistence that made him successful. Do not denigrate the value of your education. It is absolutely essential, but it is only the start of life's journey. Just hang in there. Read the book. You will find it in the book. After graduating, I joined the Sydney Metropolitan Water Board and worked as a civil engineer. And then I felt a moral obligation to go and help my elderly parents who had looked after me. I went off, worked for an international firm of consulting engineers who did only World Bank and Asian Development Bank projects. Learned long-term master planning. And for the first time, I was getting to be more successful. I did very well with the firm. The boss, his name was James Cox. He called me up one day and he said, "You've done well. We want you to go up and open our Indonesian office. You are the head of Indonesia." At 32, anybody would have given anything to have had that position. I said to him, "Give me some time. I'll go and have a yarn with my wife." Had a chat with my wife, and the next day I went to him and I said, "Mr. Cox, I'm resigning." He was just shocked. This is the truth. He wiped his tears, and he didn't tell me this, but he rang my wife. And he said, "What's wrong with this chap?" I won't tell you what my wife said. I arrived in Perth in 1971, and friends, the Australia of 1971 was totally different to the Australia I left in 1965. The mining boom had collapsed. High unemployment, the country in more or less recession. I could not believe it. I wrote 42 letters to everybody for a job, various government departments, most of them never replied. And for the first time, I realized a degree in civil engineering wasn't going to feed you. I rang the Commonwealth Unemployment Office. They had the Professional Unemployment Service. And the gentleman said, "There is no work for civil engineers, surveyors, architects, and so on and so forth." I rang him again. I'm persistent. I kept on ringing him. The third time, he was a bit upset. He said to me, "I've told you, you've got a wife, 2 kids, a third on the way. Join the dole queue." I had my suit. I was still thinking that I was a big man. Joined the dole queue, October 71. About 30 to 35 ahead of me, chaps with thongs and sleeveless shirts and singlets, nothing. I was at the back of the queue. I was moving very slowly. After about 6 minutes, I said, "I don't belong here. This is not me. I'm not going to take money for not working." I walked out of the queue. I cried and cried like a child. Took a taxi, went to the flat, and said, "What's next? What's next?" Decided to join a real estate firm as a land salesman. There is always a new door that will open when you have a door closed. I learned real estate. And in that office, there was also another gentleman, a Swedish gentleman. He was unemployed. So we were both unemployed, so we were good friends. So Bo Raymond is his name, and he said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I've got a great idea. We'll make a fortune." I said, "In what?" "Selling rulers." He said, Australia had just gone metric, and he had this ruler. He had this ruler, metric on one side, imperial on the other side. This is the same ruler I've had for a long time. He said, "Let's order 2,000 rulers, and we'll go and sell it from one hardware shop to the other hardware shop." So I joined him. He went to some hardware shop, I went on the other side, trying to flog rulers. Didn't have much success. I had a bit more success in real estate. My wife had arrived by then, and I went home and told her today, I sold 13 rulers today. I'd conquered the world. A sense of satisfaction, chaps, that you can earn your own money. You don't have to join the dole queue. You can earn your own dollar. I don't think she was very happy with that, but I used to go to work every day at 8 o'clock, come back at 5:30 sharp. I was always doing something, always up to something, trying to find out how to survive. That's a game change in your life. That's a game change, major game change. One day I pulled up my car at 5:30 and my wife came out, she was smiling and she said, I've got a letter for you. I opened it up, an offer from the Perth Metropolitan Water Board, offering me a job as a civil engineer. I looked at it and put it to one side. And she said, aren't you taking it? I said, no, I don't want to take it. I'm already beginning to fly, so let me leave them alone. She insisted I take it. She said, you've got 3 mouths to feed, other than me and you. And we are not having a great time. I took the job, worked for 4.5 years with the Perth Metropolitan Water Board. But my mind was always in the outside world. I wasn't going to be caged. I said, the world outside has got all the opportunities. Resigned with a fellow civil engineer, his name was Ken Law Davis. Converted him from being an engineer to join me. We went out as builders, building duplexes and houses. And friends, we hired $17,000. Everything we touched for the next 5 years went to gold. By 1981, we had $7.5 million. 31 years ago, you could multiply that by about 10 today. Ken was very happy. He had met a young girl, and he said, I'm going to the States. I can live with my money forever. So he went off. I couldn't stop him. I kept on going, still being very successful. And my financiers and lawyers advised me, you better go public. You are doing so well. You have to go public. I went out with a prospectus to raise $14 million. At that stage, Westfield was on the market for $150 million. So you can see the comparison. Raised the $14 million against all the difficulties. Had a technical fault. Had to return the money. Had $42 million worth of debt. And my empire had crashed. Totally crashed. Overnight it crashed. My first trip to hell, I didn't have money to pay. But I had to work my way out. And when I went to hell, I saw a lot of other friends of mine. Not friends, but they were colleagues. We were all burning in hell. You can see why my color is this. We were burning in hell. I managed to quit, got out of that, left those chaps behind, came back. And that's when my present business partner, Bob Sharpless, came into my life. He had a civil engineering degree and an MBA. And Bob wrote to me 2 years prior to this and said, can I work for you? And to cut the story short, he did not know things had gone bad and I had lost everything. But he said, Naaman, I'll work for you. We'll work together. So Bob became my partner. And I said to Bob, I'll tell you something. I am a negative millionaire, Bob. A negative millionaire is a person who owes millions more than what he's worth. But Bob, you are very good. You are at least not a millionaire, you got a few dollars in your pocket. But let's keep going. One day we will all be millionaires. So we kept working. We had about $40,000 between ourselves. We left Perth, came up here, rented an old house in Bartley Street in Spring Hill, 2-bedroom house. Bob's in one room, me on the other room. The room where Bob had as his office, at night time he converted to his bedroom. That's how we started in Brisbane. That's 1985. By 1990, we had made about $8.9 million. 1992, we had lost about 8.5 of that. Back again on the roller coaster. But you know the roller coaster. In my life, if the roller coaster goes up, it'll come down, and when it comes down, I know it'll go up. We just kept going. 1992 is when Springfield came on the market. 7,060 acres. It was for sale, $7.6 million. Most of the major public companies like Stocklands or Lendlease, these chaps could have bought it out with petty cash. They did not want to touch it, chaps. They did not want to touch it. It had all the problems in the world. I rang the agent after 9 months because he couldn't sell it. I said to him, "What's happening?" And he said, "Nothing is happening." I was going to get my commission about 6 months ago. And he said, "What have you got?" I said, "I haven't got any money, my friend." Those of you who want to buy real estate without money, come and see me later on. We contracted the land, that was Springfield, and it had all the problems in the world. The Ipswich of 1992, they were selling homes in Ipswich for $22,000. And the most expensive asset in Ipswich was a state prison. It was socially and economically depressed, high crime rate, high unemployment, and low morale. It had to have a freeway at a cost of $200 million, and it had to have an approval to develop the balance of the land because only 5% of it was zoned. So there you are. We had the land under contract. I called up a very senior planner. I think he's the best planner in the country. I called him up, and I called up a surveyor who is also a very experienced chap. And I said to him, "Chaps, I've got this land under contract. What do we do?" They really looked, they felt very sorry for me. They felt very sorry for me. They said, "We don't know what to do. This is a hard one." They said, "This is a really hard one." And they said, "Give me 2 weeks, and I'll come back to you." After 2 weeks, they came with a big smile ear to ear. "We've got the answer. Chop it up into 40-acre parcels, make $15 million, go for the next one." I looked at them and I said, "Chaps, that's not me. That's not me. I see something in this land. There's something in this forest." Well, they said, "We can't see anything, just chop it up, mate." And my wife's, you go and ask her, she said I was crazy. Everyone did not believe in it. Those of you who are familiar with this project, everyone, including the chaps in my office. I ask you to think of this very carefully. Those of us who are not sculptors, we look at a rock and we see a rock. A sculptor looks at a rock. He sees a beautiful face in it. The face is already there, chaps. He goes and brings that face out. He sees the face. So we saw a forest and it was calling to us and saying, "I'm a city, bring me out." But nobody believes you. Not one single person believed it. It took about a couple of months for my partner and the others to believe in it. So we kept going. The chaps in the council did not want to see us. They said, "You are mad. We have not approved anything over 200 block subdivision, and you are trying to build a city." We didn't tell them the full details because they might get frightened, but we had a separate plan underneath. And we said, we just want to do this. It was just after the Fitzgerald inquiry, Goss came into power. You had not a chance. If you said you were a developer, you had not a chance of seeing any senior bureaucrats, no chance of seeing the premier. We had to overcome all that. One day I managed to catch Goss. I used to go to all these functions. Hello, Mr. Premier, hello. He just got used to me. One day I saw him coming down the escalators in the Sheraton Hotel it used to be and said, Premier, can I come and see you? He looked at it. He said, okay. He wasn't very happy. But anyway, I'll cut the story short. The government said to us, in order to have approval for your development, we do not have a planning instrument. You have to have a validating legislation and an act of parliament. They were trying to get rid of us, fellas. They were hoping that's the end of us. We kept going and going and going. I have a great admiration for our bureaucrats who look after government. They have a job to do, they do it well. I have a great admiration. But many a time we have gone to these bureaucrats and we were at different ends. They were in a different planet, we were in a different planet. And I used to come back after meetings with these bureaucrats and I used to say to the staff in the office, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. So that's the sort of a message you're going. You will have this in everything you want to do in life. You will have it all the time. Everyone will say to you, you can't do it. But you have to have that belief in yourself. I will do it. It's you that matters. It's you and you alone that matters. I will do it. I'm not going to take no for an answer. Have that confidence in yourself. Have that strong sense of self-belief. You and you alone will bring yourself out of a problem. Nobody else will. Have that belief. When we had the approval done, we invited the two senior bureaucrats because we did not have lunch with them, we couldn't have drinks with them, we were not allowed to do anything. They came up, wonderful gentlemen, and I said to them at our boardroom lunch, we only offered them sandwiches. I said to them, thank you very much for all what you have done. And they said, we have to thank you. This is exactly what they said. We have to thank you for what we have learned out of you fellas. So chaps, have that strong sense of self-belief. It is you who is going to change the world. Nobody else is going to change it. And when they say to give up, and I had everyone who said, just give it up, mate. It's too hard. You won't get this through. If anybody says to you to give up, give them up. Go away, get away from them. Just keep going. And you will get there. Part of the exercise was trying to catch the other ministers and maybe the premier, and Goss went. Borbidge came. And Borbidge was very difficult to get because there were different parties. But somehow we had to overcome that. And one day it went to Parliament. It went to Parliament for approval. As you know, we have 89 parliamentarians. You got the government, you got the opposition, and the independents. This subject was debated for 4.5 hours in Parliament. Late at night, they decided to have a vote. And you know what, friends? All the 89 hands went up. Go and look at Hansard. Go and look at Hansard. 89 hands went up. And yet 4.5 years ago, they did not believe in it. So just have that strong, strong sense of self-belief. And 89 hands went up, and for the first time in the history of this country, a city was given birth other than Canberra. A city that will be twice the size of the CBD of Brisbane was given birth on that night. And it was a unanimous approval by all of our parliamentarians. So we kept going, and after that, there was a challenge to bring the freeway in. And of course, my friend Peter Beattie comes on the scene. Borbidge disappears. We have seen 5 premiers. And incidentally, we have also seen 5 prime ministers. We've got along well with all of them. You can check the records. We have got along well with all of them. Premier Beattie comes up. You can't get hold of Beattie. But I do know that he flies overseas. And when he's overseas, when he's flying overseas, he's in a plane, he's locked up. Okay? So on one trip, he was going from Brisbane, Singapore, KL to Vietnam, Hanoi. I registered. Most of the business people are allowed to go. And I rang the protocol officer before going, and I said, "Can I sit next to Premier Beattie?" They said to me, "Is your name Heather Beattie?" No, it's not Heather Beattie, but I can change it if you want to. I was not allowed to sit next to him. But I had a seat behind him. Heather and Peter were sitting side by side. Brisbane, Singapore, no. Singapore, KL, no. But Peter found out about this. He knew that, somebody had told him, this bloke wants to get hold of it. So out of sympathy, he came and sat with me from KL to Hanoi. Out comes all the plans, all the story, I've got you. And he was convinced. He just needed that attention and time, one-to-one, to explain the story. Centenary Highway today, friends, is over $300 million. It's been built. We had to pay quite a bit of that, but it was built. So if you have to do anything, just hang in there. Everybody will say you can't do it. Just hang in there. So the project goes. I've got only little time, so I can't tell you too much, but we went on for about 4 years. We started selling real estate. We did well. And all of a sudden, the market collapsed. And for the next 18 months, we could not pay our interest bill. The bank called Bob and I for a meeting. And the bloke said, "I've heard all those fancy stories. You want to build a city and so on and so forth. We've had enough of you. We want our money in 30 days. How do you raise this money in 30 days? They deliberately did that to try and wipe us out. Anyway, something happened, and in the 30 days, we managed to sort the bank out. But before that, that was my second trip to hell. Because, chaps, you go out and try and sleep at night when you know in 30 days, all the publicity that you have had, that you are building a city and bringing a university and all sorts of things, and you have lost the land. It was an absolute nightmare for the 30 days. We managed to sort it out. I can explain to those who want to know the details. Got rid of the bank, came out of hell for the second time. But when I went to hell this time, I saw the chaps from the first time still burning there. Got out of the hell and came out. And today, the project is moving very rapidly. It's had a $9.6 billion worth of expenditure that Springfield has had, 3.5 by all the stakeholders within Springfield, 2.5 billion by the state government, which includes the railway line, and 3.6 billion by the federal government to do all the major infrastructure outside Springfield to support the region. It's moving very fast. We've got 23,000 residents. We've got 3.3 families moving per day. Read the book. You can convince 1 or 2 families, but you can't convince 23,000. One thing that I like to explain to you here, we fundamentally are not developers. I always say this, chase the success, chaps. In your life, I like you to take this message. Chase success and money will follow. Don't chase the money. I said to Professor Griffiths, go and check the companies in the stock exchange that were in 1980 and what's in today. 80% have disappeared. They all chased the money. Chase success in whatever you want to do, and money will follow. Today, I'm very proud to say that I owe to society a lot. We have very heavy emphasis on education. Education is the currency of the future. This is what I have to contribute to society, which has done a lot for me. Education is the currency of the future. Education is the only currency that you can cash anywhere in the world. Whether you go to Delhi or Beijing or New York or London, you can cash it. And education is the only currency that cannot be stolen from you. It's with you all the time. We place a lot of emphasis on education. This year, we have 10,300 students. We've got 9 schools, a university which is growing very rapidly, and very strong emphasis on education. 10,300 students. There were none in that part of the world some time ago. And 44.6% of that population are students. The highest ratio of students to residents in this country is at Springfield. And that is going to grow hard. We will drive education and health very, very, very hard. I give you an open invitation to come and look at Springfield. And any one of you can email to me. I'll organize for you to have a look at it. But it's a wonderful experience of what determination and persistence and tenacity and having a vision. Think of the rock. A lot of times you will see a rock in different forms, in different aspects of your life. Always think what's inside the rock. And it's trying to sum up, I like to say a few things. We live in a great country, a country that has unlimited resources. Do you know that Australia is 65% of the size of India and China combined in land area? India and China have got 2.4 billion. We have 23 million, 1% of India and China. And we have all the natural resources the world needs very badly. 1% enjoying this. 4,500 kilometers of ocean frontage, pristine ocean frontage, wonderful climate. I look at Heathrow Airport in Chicago, the planes can't take off a few times a year. Sweden, they can't have their boats out. But we have a great, great country, chaps. No excuse for you not to do well. And with all that, we value human rights. I respect human rights. I love this country for its respect for human rights. A great, great country. Just take advantage of it. There is no excuse for you not to do well. And say to yourself, it's a self-belief that matters. Have a strong, strong sense of self-belief. It is you and you alone that's going to exploit this great country. You are your best friend. You are with your friend 24 hours a day. You are with this friend from birth to death. You take this friend to bed at night. Trust your friend. Believe in your friend. Support your friend. You are your best asset. We've got everything else. You are your best asset, and you have got no excuse. But I'll finish off with this. Just remember this when you go home. The darkest night brings the brightest dawn. Persistence, strong, strong sense of self-belief. And if you have that strong sense of self-belief, your mind will gravitate you to a solution. You find it out for yourself. Put your mind to test. Your mind will gravitate you to a solution. And success is your birthright. It's your birthright. So value that. I'll leave you with one saying from a famous French philosopher, Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So think big and you'll be big. Thank you.
Well, folks, we're moving into the Q&A session. As we do so, I'd like to ask those people who may need to go or that now is a good opportunity to do so, and not to forget that as you leave there is a copy of the book available. However, as you gather your thoughts for the Q&A session, I would like to, I suppose I'd like to pose one to Maha. And I suppose for me what is really, really curious is that sense of self-belief and that sense of determination that one has as an entrepreneur. And I wanted to ask you whether that was an intrinsic internal mechanism or whether it can be created, and in your opinion, how it can be created.
Thanks, Andrew. I think it's already in you. As I said, success is your birthright. Say that to yourself. Say that to yourself. There is nobody else who can get you from A to B other than you. You've got to make the move and believe in that. Have that strong, strong sense of self-belief. Sometimes it comes with external influence, with who you surround yourself. Don't ever think any negative thoughts. If a negative thought comes into your mind, just wipe it out. You know how in your emails you press delete? You wipe it out. And always think well of yourself. And that's, you've got to, as I said, you've got to trust yourself, believe in yourself. Everybody will say no. That's something that you acquire from within yourself, acquired by the right contact. Avoid those blokes who say to you to give up, give them up. Your company matters a lot, and for those children who are growing up, the parents have a big influence. They are the factors, Andrew.
So now we throw it open to the floor. We have a mic, so if you just wait till the mic reaches you.
Maha, David Muir, I liked your reference to the Michelangelo rock. I'm wondering whether former Lord Mayor Clem Jones was able to see the face in the rock when you met him.
Clem was a wonderful person. He was very instrumental in giving us confidence about the land. He was involved in the centenary suburbs. He had a lot to do in what centenary suburbs is today. But more important, he was a friend of Terry McEnroth. And Terry McEnroth was probably given a lot of hand by Clem in guidance. And Terry McEnroth happened to be the planning minister. And I asked Clem, can you take me to meet Mr. McEnroth? And Tom Burns was just prior to him, and Clem was the man who took us to them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the access to him. Clem is a very close friend of mine. I've got a great regard for him. He's a wonderful human being. We had to use his influence to try and get through the corridors of power. Does that answer your question, David? Thank you.
Do you agree with the statement or perhaps observation that many of the successful entrepreneurs need somebody with them who's the details person? You know, Microsoft always had his right-hand man who looked after details. So as an entrepreneur or the visionary, you have somebody who has to worry, if you like, work behind the scene to make things happen. Do you agree that that's the case?
I couldn't get the question.
Do you need somebody to work behind the scenes as an entrepreneur to make things happen?
Oh, of course, yes. I mean, there are a lot of people who can play a big part in what you're trying to do. And you've got to identify those who are key to who will get you to your final destination. Avoid the chaps who distract you. Give them away. Hang on to those chaps who can get you to where you want. As I just said, Clem Jones was very, very strong instrument in trying to get us to some of the ministers with whom we had no access. So it's important that you identify who are the individuals who can get you and open the doors. And of course, in the end of the day, you have to sell it on credibility. Whatever you're trying to ask for has to satisfy the government's requirements or anybody's requirements. And it's amazing, when you look for them, they are there. Don't tell it's lucky. You have to look for them. You just keep thinking of it 24/7.
Michael Burmeister with Brisbane City Council. So I thank you for your forgiveness, because I'm one of those bureaucrats that I'd like to think is of good intent. And you've talked a lot about the value of the self and the person today, but I suppose one of the things that's very important to me personally and professionally is the community and the community in which we work and live, and that's obviously what you're building out there. I've had a personal experience in my neighbourhood where we had a chain wire fence on one side and a 6-foot timber fence on the other. We knew the people on the chain wire side very well because we could see them and wave to them and chat to them, and we didn't really know the people on the other side very well at all, even though they were both lovely people. So I'm just interested in your views to building community at Springfield, to building the sense of community that goes with that real strength as an individual.
As I said to you, I mentioned about the surveyor and the planner who said, chop it up, make $15 million and disappear. You have to have a strong sense of social responsibility, and that actually pays off in the long run. And so I hope I've read your question right. I couldn't hear it. The sound system is not perfect, but if ask me again if you want to. But we had a strong sense of building a community. We had a strong sense of making sure that this region, which was socially and economically depressed, has to be uplifted. And we knew they were the tunes that the government wanted to hear. They were not there to support the fly-by-night chaps who were there to make a quick buck and run. And one of the things that we did was, when we planned these 7,000 acres, we actually planned the entire region of 30-kilometer radius. The government was fascinated. You don't get 89 parliamentarians putting their hands up just because they like you. You might have one or two might be on your side, but they respected the fact that you took a holistic account of this, that it was going to uplift human values, it was going to add human capital because we are doing that with education, and we planned a region. You ask Paul Pisali, the mayor, he will tell you, you put the rocket to the Western Corridor. So these are the factors that you get government and councils to engage and support you. I hope that I've answered the question. But within the community itself, you live, learn, work, and play. A resident who lives in Springfield does not have to go anywhere. At the moment, when the rail is completed, they don't have to go anywhere. A mom who has got a child who goes to kindy or primary or secondary school or university can drop the children, go to work, and back in 10 minutes. These are the things that are influencing the movement.
Any further questions? Maha, I just wanted to build on that one, actually. You actually noted, and I'm glad you did note this, that you failed a couple of times in your schooling. We have something in common. Okay. You made the point about education being very, very important in terms of a sense of self-worth. Did you want to elaborate on how you can utilise an education to enhance your ability to be an entrepreneur?
In education, I think the primary thing that I got out of university myself was the fact that I had a big board outside my desk and it said, think. So, in other words, when you have a problem, you got to think and work out what the solution is. But education in whatever field you have had allows you to think and solve your problem. That's why you sit for exams, and this is my opinion of it, that you're given a chance to educate or train your mind, train for concentration. Your power of concentration increases, and thereby when you go outside in the world, you're out there to try and solve the problems. But education doesn't help you when you go to the real world beyond that thinking and the concentration. Out there in the world, you meet all sorts of characters. There are people who are there to help you, and there are people who are there to stop you, and there are people who are there to destroy you. Now you've got to work through this jungle. And that is a separate experience. Andrew, you know that, I've mentioned that to you. You can teach a bloke how to drive a car, but you can never teach a chap how to avoid an accident. When he or she is faced with an accident, they've got to think about how the dickens do I get out of it. You can have all your business plans, but you cannot plan a GFC. You can have all your business plans, but you cannot plan an economic crisis that's going in Europe. So you have to immediately learn to readjust yourself to face the new situation. And that's what the concentration and whatever education that you might have had will help you.
Okay, folks, in order to wrap up, I'd like to pass on my thanks to Maha for a truly inspirational lecture and presentation. It's very rare that you get a speaker that will give you the full run of emotions. Will talk passionately about their sense of life and who actually display that determination. And I don't know how you did it, but you did it all in half an hour, so I was quite impressed. Would you join me in thanking Maha for his contributions today to our series?